Woman, listen carefully. The greatest proof that you have passed heaven's ultimate test is that you are no longer bound by what tried to hold you down. When you can stand in the middle of loss and still know you are not empty, when you can release what you loved without collapsing, when you can walk away from what was never yours and still smile at tomorrow, then you have crossed into a realm where all of heaven begins to move in your favor. Because the true test of a woman's strength is not what she can carry, but what she can release. God will test your heart, not by the weight of your possessions, not by the applause of people, but by whether you can let go without bitterness, detach without losing your identity, and rise without needing the crowd that once validated you. That is the furnace where queens are forged. The greatest bondage is emotional dependency. Many women are chained not by iron, but by invisible threads of needing approval, fearing rejection, or longing for acceptance from those who could never see their value. But when you reach the place where you no longer beg to be understood, when you no longer shrink to be chosen, when you can be whole, even if you are misunderstood or abandoned, then heaven testifies, she is ready. Detachment is not a lack of love. It is the highest expression of love. It means you love, but you are not enslaved. You give, but you are not depleted. You stand, but you are not shaken if others walk away. It is the proof that your roots are not in people, but in God. And when God sees that your loyalty belongs to Him alone, He releases resources, favor, and authority into your life that no human hand can stop. Hear this clearly. Strength is not measured by how much you can endure being broken, but by how swiftly you can heal and keep walking. When your heart is detached from the opinions of men, you are unshakable, because the only voice that defines you is eternal. That is why heaven now backs you. Because you have passed the test of identity, you no longer define yourself by who stayed or who left, but by who created you and sent you. Do not mistake emotional detachment for coldness. It is clarity. It is the ability to stand in purpose without being distracted by noise, manipulated by guilt, or delayed by fear. It is the confidence of a woman who knows that her destiny is not up for negotiation. That is why heaven trusts you now with more influence, more opportunities, and more authority. Because you cannot be bribed, you cannot be bought, and you cannot be stopped. The ultimate test was not about others. It was about you. Would you cling to what was familiar or trust what was eternal? Would you allow rejection to define you, or would you step into your identity? And because you have chosen faith over fear, clarity over confusion, and purpose over attachment, the heavens have aligned behind you. The ultimate test is not about what you can hold on to, but about what you are willing to release. Many times in life, God will allow you to come face to face with the very thing you thought you could never live without, and then He will ask you to place it on the altar. It may be a relationship, a dream, a plan you carefully built, or an image of the future you imagine. And in that moment, you are confronted with a question that pierces the soul. Will you trust what is in God's hand more than what is in yours? This is the test of detachment. When you hold too tightly to what was only meant for a season, it begins to possess you. You no longer own it. It owns you. God's test comes to prove whether you will cling to the temporary or release it for the eternal. The real strength of a woman is not seen in how hard she can fight to keep things together, but in how gracefully she can let go when heaven says, it is time. Letting go is not weakness, it is faith. It is the highest demonstration of trust, because it means you believe God's future for you is greater than your past or present. Every time you choose to release something you thought you needed, your spirit expands. You grow lighter, freer, and stronger. The things you surrender become the seeds of greater things to come. But if you fail the test, you remain trapped in cycles that were never meant to define you. The proof that you have passed is when you can walk away without fear, without bitterness, and without regret, because you know that what God has prepared cannot be compared to what you've left behind. When a woman chooses to let go of what was never meant for her, she opens a door for heaven to move in ways she could never orchestrate on her own. God does not fill hands that are already full. If your heart is cluttered with attachments that drain you, with relationships that confuse you, or with memories that chain you, then there is no room for the divine alignment of your destiny. The test of heaven is to see if you are willing to make space. When you release what weighs you down, heaven rushes in to replace it with what lifts you higher. Heaven backs the uncluttered heart, because an uncluttered heart is a surrendered heart. It is a heart no longer tangled in the fear of being alone, the need for constant approval, or the scars of past rejection. Such a heart has proven to God that its security does not rest in human hands. That is the moment heaven responds, because God only pours his greatest assignments into vessels that are clean, available, and undistracted. The reason so many women remain in cycles of disappointment is because they hold on to what should have been released. But when you let go, you create an atmosphere for divine acceleration. Heaven begins to fight battles for you, open doors you never knocked on, and align you with people you never searched for. This is not because of striving, but because you passed the test of detachment. A woman whose heart is uncluttered becomes a magnet for heaven's resources, because God knows she will not idolize the gift, but will steward it for his purpose. The uncluttered heart carries authority that cannot be challenged, because all of heaven recognizes its loyalty. True strength is not measured by how long you can hold on, but by how boldly you can walk away when something no longer aligns with your purpose. The confidence of a woman is revealed not in her ability to endure mistreatment, but in her courage to say, "This no longer serves the calling God placed on my life." Many confuse attachment with loyalty, but there is a difference. Loyalty is rooted in love and honor, while attachment is rooted in fear and dependence. The moment you choose to walk away from what mishandles your value, you declare to heaven and earth that you understand who you are. Human strength is proven when you can step away without needing closure, without needing validation, and without begging someone to see what they never had the capacity to recognize. The ability to detach from people who mishandle your worth is not arrogance, it is wisdom. It means you finally know the difference between being wanted and being valued, between being used and being honored. And when you walk away with dignity instead of resentment, heaven stands as witness that you have graduated to a higher level of strength. Every woman must face the moment when she chooses whether her peace is worth more than someone else's approval. That moment defines her destiny. If you can only feel secure when others affirm you, then you are still bound. But when you can look in the mirror and know you are enough, even if no one applauds, then you are unstoppable. Strength is not found in clinging to what drains you. It is found in releasing it with grace. The woman who passes this test becomes untouchable, because nothing and no one can dictate the value she already carries within. Every woman chosen for a divine assignment will eventually encounter the season where God calls her to separate from what is comfortable. Purpose never grows in the soil of familiarity. The people, environments, and patterns that once sustained you cannot carry you into your next level. Separation is not punishment, it is preparation. God removes you from circles that confine your thinking because he is shaping you for a destiny that requires greater vision, discipline, and faith. The very detachment you resist often becomes the pathway that unlocks your true identity. Purpose demands that you release what feels safe so you can embrace what feels divine. Abraham was told to leave his father's house, not because it was evil, but because it was limited. In the same way, you will be required to leave behind attachments that are not wrong, but they're too small for the greatness inside of you. If you refuse the separation, you risk shrinking your destiny to fit within the boundaries of your comfort. But if you yield, you step into dimensions you never imagined. This test is not easy because it touches your emotions. It requires you to detach not only from people, but sometimes from versions of yourself that no longer serve who you are becoming. Yet every tear you shed in obedience becomes a seed for the harvest of purpose. When God calls you out, it is never to abandon you, but to align you. The moment you say yes to separation, heaven begins to orchestrate divine connections, new opportunities, and supernatural strength. The loneliness of that season is temporary, but the reward is eternal. A woman who dares to detach from the familiar is a woman who has chosen destiny over comfort. Detachment is often misunderstood because people confuse it with hardness of heart, but true detachment is not the absence of love. It is the presence of clarity. It is the ability to love without being enslaved, to give without being emptied, and to stand without being shaken when others choose to walk away. Detachment means your emotions are no longer in control of your destiny. You are no longer manipulated by guilt, crippled by fear, or silenced by rejection. Instead, your spirit stands anchored in truth, and your heart is free to focus on what truly matters. A detached woman is not cold. She is centered. She is not unkind. She is unmovable. Detachment allows her to see people and situations for what they really are, without illusions, without desperate expectations, and without self-deception. It is not the absence of compassion, but the wisdom to protect her peace. When you can interact with others from a place of fullness rather than need, you are no longer at risk of being controlled by their approval or rejection. You are present, you are engaged, but you are not bound. This clarity gives birth to an unshakable confidence. A woman who has mastered detachment cannot be easily swayed by emotional storms. She can discern manipulation quickly because her spirit is not clouded by the fog of dependency. She can forgive and still move on. She can love and still set boundaries. She can serve and still protect her soul. Such a woman becomes a safe vessel for purpose because her heart is not tossed by the instability of others. Detachment is the proof that you have matured, that your foundation is no longer emotional reactions, but spiritual conviction. It is the posture of a woman fully aligned with her destiny. One of the deepest tests God gives a woman is the test of identity. This test asks a piercing question. Will you define yourself by who left you or by who sent you? Too many women anchor their worth in the opinions, presence, or absence of people. They allow rejection to tell them they are not valuable, or abandonment to whisper that they are not enough. But heaven waits for the day when you look at yourself and declare, my value is not determined by who stayed, nor diminished by who walked away. My identity is anchored in the one who created me and called me. That is the moment you pass the test. When you measure yourself by people, you are trapped in instability because people are inconsistent. One day they celebrate you, the next they criticize you. One day they promise to stay, the next they disappear. If your confidence rises and falls with their behavior, you remain a prisoner of their instability. But when you pass the test of identity, you no longer ride the waves of human approval. You walk on water because your foundation is unshakable. You know who you are, not because people clap, but because God spoke. Every woman with purpose must encounter betrayal, rejection, or loss because these moments strip away false identities. They force you to choose between being defined by wounds or being defined by destiny. If you let the pain shape your identity, you stay small. But if you let God's word shape your identity, you rise above. Passing this test means you no longer introduce yourself by your pain, but by your purpose. You no longer see yourself through the lens of who left, but through the eyes of the one who never will. That is true freedom. Heaven only backs the woman who cannot be shaken, because instability cannot carry destiny. When you pass the test of detachment, you enter a realm of authority where nothing outside of you can control the inside of you. You become a woman who is steady in storms, calm in rejection, and immovable in the face of betrayal. Heaven looks for women who cannot be bribed with flattery, broken by abandonment, or manipulated by fear. When your heart is fully anchored in God's purpose, you rise above the fragile emotions that once dictated your choices, and you carry a weight of glory that hell cannot challenge. The woman who has passed this test is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. She is no longer slowed by distractions, no longer chained by insecurity, no longer delayed by toxic attachments. She has discovered that peace is her power and focus is her shield. And because she has proven that her loyalty cannot be bought, heaven entrusts her with assignments that others could never carry. Authority is only given to those who can stand without being moved, because heaven will not invest its power in a divided heart. When you reach this place, rejection no longer intimidates you, because you know that God's yes is greater than man's no. Delay no longer discourages you, because you understand that timing belongs to the one who holds eternity. Loss no longer devastates you, because you see that every closed door is an announcement that heaven is preparing a better one. This is why heaven backs you now. You have proven that your faith is not seasonal, your love is not conditional, and your purpose is not negotiable. And when heaven stands behind you, no force on earth can stand against you. Woman, the proof that you have passed God's ultimate test is that you no longer live chained to what tried to break you. You are no longer defined by what you lost, but by what you carry. You are no longer moved by who walked away, but by the one who walks with you. The heavens now back you because you have chosen obedience over fear, clarity over confusion, and destiny over attachment. You are a living testimony that strength is not in clinging, but in releasing. And because you have surrendered what was never meant to hold you, God will now place in your hands what cannot be taken from you. Walk boldly, stand firmly, and live freely, because heaven has declared she is ready.